All right, up next, The Hollywood Reporter learned that DC Studios is developing a villains-centric movie centered around the characters of Bane and Deathstroke. While no director has been selected yet, Captain America Brave New World writer Matthew Orton is working on the script. On the hero side, a new animated film was greenlit and will be called Dynamic Duo, focusing on Dick Grayson and Jason Todd as the Robins in their early years. The feature film will use what's called Momo animation, a blend of CGI, stop motion, and motion capture. DC's doing a lot right now. What do we think?
We think DC's doing a lot right now. Starting to feel like a little too much. I don't know. The villains movie, this is all we know, is that it's going to happen probably, and that Matthew Orton's working on the script. He kind of cut his teeth in this geek world doing some work on the Moon Knight series for Marvel, so he's not jumping ship, but it's kind of like back in the comic book days early when all the Marvel writers would go to DC and then they'd come back and such, and that still happens now. It's kind of funny to see it happening in the movie world too, that they're doing that. So those are two really popular Rogues Gallery characters. Bane and Deathstroke could be like a really fun, who knows what, slasher movie. That'd be hilarious, and I'd be down for it. The Dynamic Duo movie just broke today, and it's interesting. So this movie is being created by Matt Reeves' production company, but it's not connected to anything Matt Reeves has done. It's just crazy.
More like, Batman that's not in the Batman universe.
As I'm reading it, I'm just kind of laughing at the wildness of this. There's a New Orleans-based animation company called Swaybox who is doing this animation style that they have pioneered, is what the article says. And it's this approach to puppetry, quote, is how Variety puts it. And that's that blend of the live-action mocap, the stop-motion, and CG. And I saw a clip of it, like, really fast. I found a video, and it kind of made me think most closely of like Coraline and that, which is stop motion, but that's kind of what it looked like to me just from a few seconds of watching it. And so Reeves is producing, the animation studio is producing, Gunn and Safran are producing, and then Michael Uslan is producing this movie, and he's produced every Batman movie that has ever existed. So there's a lot of hands in the kitchen on this one, and it's kind of interesting that Reeves seems to really want to lean into this animation stuff. He did the brand new Batman animated series that came out on Amazon this year, which I'm blanking on the name right at the second.
Caped Crusader.
Caped Crusader, which was super reminiscent of the original Batman, the animated series. So, and then at the same time, he's working on the second Batman, the Batman movie, and we've got the Penguin. And so here we are again talking about all these different factions in DC. You've got James Gunn's live-action DCU. You've got James Gunn's DCU animation, we think. You've got Matt Reeves' animated, not connected universe. You've got Matt Reeves' The Batman universe. Like, it's getting a little stressful, like, reporting on it. It's starting to stress me out. I feel like I'm getting hives just talking about it because it's getting complicated. And not that it hasn't always been, but I'm starting to wonder if the fracture is just these two sides. And if so, I think that's okay. Because then you've got, like, this side of Batman or DC, and you've got this side of DC. But what are we doing? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. What? Forgive me, you may have said this, Haley. Do we know what universe the Bane and Deathstroke movie is?
It just said DC Studios,
yeah,
which is kind of how this article was too.
We're assuming DCU, but we also, it's unclear, and the article said that it was unclear if that means that Bane and Deathstroke are the main characters of the movie, or if that means that it's just a movie that has Bane and Deathstroke in it. You know, like, it very well could be that Batman Brave and the Bold has Bane and Deathstroke. You know, like, we just don't know. Now, it read to me, personally, that this was intended that it was like a movie about them, like it was a them-centered movie. But again, it's that is not a confirmed thing.
Okay, yeah, that's the thing I keep going back to, and you know, watching the Penguin this week, and last week, I'm loving that show, and I'm like, the Matt Reeves Batman universe is where it's at to me. Like, I'm loving that, and I want more from that. I want more in that vein. And I'd like it to be connected. I love a connected universe, and they're starting to do that. It's like they have started off a universe. We say it all the time. These companies try to make good big universes, but we say all the time, just make a good movie and then build a universe from it. You know, that's what we've always said. It's kind of the and obviously Marvel started with 2 movies and then sort of picked a lane on the tone. But like, so many people try to go in and make I guess what I'm saying is they have made a really great movie with the Batman and then followed it up with a really great series. And now I'm like, oh man, this is starting to build a universe I'm really interested in. And James Gunn's like, now the DC universe is here. I don't know what that's going to be like. Totally different. So yeah, it's strange times at DC.
Always.
The one aspect on the report for the Bane Deathstroke movie that makes me think it is its own thing and it's not connected to anything like Brave and the Bold is that they said there's no director attached. And we know that at this point in time, Andy Muschietti is still technically attached to the Brave and the Bold there. But I am reminded, I want to say back like circa 2016, it was like right, during the glut of superhero movies being, all the rage. We were talking about the Channing Tatum Gambit movie possibly coming out, and alongside that there was an announcement that a Deathstroke solo film was being developed, and it was going to be directed by Gareth Evans, who did The Raid. And if you're familiar with the Raid movies, they are some of the best action movies to come out in the last decade or so. I guess it's been about a decade at this point, but in the last 10 years or so. So I was always really excited for that. Deathstroke is one of those characters that I've always had an affinity for. Back when I was, again, circa 2016, when I was actively reading comic books, going to the comic book shop every Wednesday to get the new comics, I was reading the Deathstroke solo run there. So I hope it goes the distance. He seems like he's one of those characters that there's a lot of interest behind, but he's never really had a big foray outside of like TV and video games. But hopefully this is his opportunity. Bane, on the other side, I think Bane has been a little oversaturated for when he debuted. He came out in the 90s. I'm going to kind of repeat myself here, but if you remember what I said about Venom kind of being a product of the 90s and the
how could we forget the top? How could we forget
the top? Yeah. Extreme 90s. Yeah, kind of.
The Kool-Aid Man version of superheroes.
We had an extended discussion after that episode about the Kool-Aid Man, and then
it's kind of that.
And then I posed the question: is the Kool-Aid Man the glass or the juice? To which
right.
I think he's the juice, but whatever.
We
bring
were
that back for the Spotify poll. But all that being said, Bane has had some good adaptations. I tend to actually like it when they lean into the comedy. I love him on Harley Quinn. We'll see how this villain movie shapes up there. I think it is interesting that they got Matthew Orton, who, Haley, to your point, going from Marvel to DC back and forth and whatnot. Makes me think that they've seen something in Brave New World that they liked, so that just gets me that little bit more excited for that one. On the Robin side of things, Haley, I'm glad that you were able to provide so many details because, to your point, this news came out right before we started recording here, so I didn't know a lot about it, but hearing that style kind of looks like Coraline is encouraging to me, because when I heard the description, I was thinking maybe it was going to be something like Sin City or some of those Frank Miller adaptations. But I like the fact that it sounds like it's going to be like Coraline and Laika, because when you think about sidekicks, like the function that they actually served back in the day, they were supposed to be the conduit for young readers, because you had these adult characters, but they wanted characters that the kids could kind of like see themselves as. So thinking about the two Robins, if it's a movie like Coraline, which I know just celebrated its 15th anniversary, that is a film that is cherished by people because at the time that it came out, a lot of young people were able to like make that their coming of age film. So if this Robin movie can do something similar, I'm on board for it. It's I'm not necessarily knocking down the doors for it, but I think it's cool.
I meant that the animation made me think of Coraline.
That's
Oh, okay. I didn't mean that the theme of the movie did necessarily.
I think it would be fitting. Batman's kind of a scary character, and you could see like younger figures kind of like looking up at their guardian figure and being like, "Oh, what does he do at nighttime?" Kind of scary.
Mm-hmm. Well, and especially because Dick Grayson and Jason Todd go different ways.
True, very true, very true.
Yeah. The Bane and Deathstroke movie has got me thinking a little bit about the Sonyverse. Sorry to bring up the Sonyverse again, but
Sure.
No, I love it. Let's talk
Mark
about
it on your bingo cards.
people have been killing the Sonyverse for making Spider-Man villain movies with no Spider-Man for a while now. And I think, could this
People
movie
called Jay.
fall? No, people. I'm doing the finger quotes. People. And, I think a lot of people are saying it, but I think that I think that this has, and I hope it doesn't. I mean, I think I have a lot of hope for this DCU. I think it could be fun. I think, I like James Gunn's directing style. I think it could be a fun thing. All the Superman legacy stuff's really encouraging. But ultimately, I could see it falling into that trap a little bit of these movies not gaining traction, because sometimes Gunn does focus on smaller characters, and sometimes it really pays off. Like Guardians of the Galaxy is a perfect example. Where he took these characters nobody knows about. I mean, Groot is literally a character. He's just a tree, and he says his name. And Gunn made him one of the most famous and recognizable Marvel characters in the world. So he can do that. He has an affinity for that. But again, I think whenever you're picking out smaller characters and you're trying to build a recognizably Batman villain movie, but you're not including Batman, which again, we don't know if they are or not, but we're not including Batman. It's just, could it fall into that same trap, right, of the Sonyverse? And so I think it's something to kind of consider is do people have an appetite for that, right? Do we have an appetite for villain movies about, or particularly villains of characters that we are already established with, them getting their own movie? Right. And again, I don't have an answer to that question, but I think it's something to think about. And then if we're casting it, I mean, I feel like Dave Bautista's got to be Bane, right? I mean, and I know he's lost a lot of weight for a lot of these roles, but him and James Gunn are boys. He's already talked about wanting to be in the DCU. He doesn't look much like Dave Bautista anymore. I don't know if you've seen him recently.
Yeah,
he's undergone a transformation.
All right.
But I mean, I feel like it feels like a dead ringer to me if that's the way we're going with it.
Well, Timothy Oliphant was recently up for a DC role. If he's not going to be Green Lantern, I could see him as Deathstroke. I like it.
Yeah, I like it. We're cooking.
That's cool. Yeah. Jay, your point about the Sonyverse and making things without these main characters, you guys said that about the Penguin, and now the three of you went off and started podcasting about it, and I was
totally
the one that was
right.
like, that show's gonna rock, and it does. And so I think but we already have an established universe for the Penguin to work within, and so it's definitely, and that's the same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy. That was part of a bigger whole, and that's why that worked so well, because they could tie it into the MCU. So we just don't know enough about what the DCU is going to be like. We know Matt Reeves' The Batman verse because it's kind of a known quantity now. We know what to expect quality-wise and writing-wise and kind of the aesthetic of that universe. We don't know yet what we're getting still with DCU. So it's going to be interesting. Not like a battle between them, because I don't think they see it that way at all, but it's going to be a little bit. And so how are they going to stack up against each other? I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
And tying it back to what you said at the beginning, Matt, you make something good, we'll watch it and we'll talk about it. Like the Penguin's a perfect example of that. We watched it and we didn't anticipate podcasting about it, and we walked away being like, this show's awesome, we need to talk about it. And a lot of people have done that. There's a lot of conversation about the Penguin. So at the end of the day, it's not like we are all, huge Matt Reeves, the Batman people. I mean, we all liked that movie, but we weren't just necessarily being like, please give us the Penguin. But then it came out and there was a lot of push behind it, and we believe in it, and we started watching it. We're like, we like it, and we're in. So I mean, you make a good movie, people are going to listen. It's just what does that movie look like, and what's the elements of it? But I think the pieces are there, and I don't think people are going to just turn it off because it's a Batman villain movie with no Batman. But it's just got that one more hurdle it's got to jump, right, to convince people to come see it.
It's interesting because we talk about the Sonyverse and how someone was just talking about that these villain movies without their hero in them. But it's interesting because we've had two great successes so far with the Penguin and the Joker for DC, and they're two, and Harley Quinn for that matter. These are villain stories, and for some reason DC is pulling it off and Sony is failing miserably at it. Just kind of an interesting thing.
Still got Craven coming.
It's true.
He's going to save it.
Hope springs eternal, baby.
Clip that for December, please.
Morbius 2 and Craven.
Yes.
And for some reason,
Morbius
Michael
2.
Keaton's there. Michael Keaton's like, I got beamed over from another universe. Like, what are you doing here? Who's this guy?
How dare you invoke Morbius too? It's so evil.
It's Morbin time, part 2.
If they ever create that, finally Sinister Six movie or whatever with all of them finally meeting up, it's like, just because Morbius has been so panned, it's going to be like, Morbius is going to be like, hey guys, meet. I gotta go.
Yeah, no, that Sinister
he's the first
Six.
5
The
minutes.
Sinister Six with Morbius is cursed.
They'll have him break the fourth wall, and they'll be like Deadpool, you know?